Welcome to Big Blend Radio's California Employment Law Podcast featuring San Diego attorney Ward Heinrichs. Everybody, welcome. You know, it is time to chat with Ward Heinrichs. He is an amazing attorney based out of San Diego, California. You know, go to bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. Always have to say it. He's got the best domain name in San Diego as an attorney. But today we are talking about California's non-compete agreements and contract clauses. He's got an article up on blendradio.tv.com where he says, don't use them. But years ago, I think Ward, I think one of our first podcast chats, this is over 10 years ago. I think are we dating ourselves? We're still 15, all of us.
Yeah, no, it's been about
I
10
remember
years.
talking about this with you and you're going, yeah, it's not a big deal. And now
I don't remember saying that, but we
kind
didn't
of
enforce
just
it
the
the
vibe.
same
Let's
way.
just put it the vibe.
Yeah,
Better
no.
not say what an attorney said and be wrong.
Well, here's the thing. I might have said, well, you know, if you have it in a clause or if you have it in a contract, that's void. It's not going to be enforced. You know, so don't worry about it that much. But now this year, everything has changed.
Okay, so what spurred this on? Because I have heard some of this in cases across the country. So it doesn't seem like it's just California. I've heard things like in Chicago, maybe New York area. I can't remember off the top of my head, but just listening to other podcasts and things, hearing like, oh, stuff's going down. And so, you know, California, whenever shenanigans are happening, isn't it always California, New York, Chicago, Washington?
Yeah, New York, California, the West Coast, Chicago. I'm not so sure of. I mean, Chicago is a Democratic town, so most of these are supposed to be protecting the little guy more. So usually that's kind of a Democrat thing. Um, so all the places you've named, except for maybe all of Illinois, because I'm just thinking Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois is a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag. But I honestly I don't know the trend in the country whether this kind of thing is going on in the country. I'm gonna guess that not this far, but that's a guess. I really don't know what New York says on this, what Illinois says on this. Um, but I can tell you that there are two camps though, and one set of states is like California and says, hey, we're going to protect a person's right to work in the profession that they have developed themselves in. And other states are in the different camp that says, well, we think that businesses should be able to protect themselves from people stealing clients and stealing employees. So there really are two different camps and philosophical positions on this in the United States.
So let's go over what this is all about, just for those tuning in now. What is a non-compete clause, a non-compete agreement? From my experience, it's always been someone who is working in the sales field or, you know, development field of bringing contracts and clients into a company. In fact, Boston Legal did this a lot in the TV show years ago, many, many years ago. There was stuff about, I brought this client in, but if you leave, you can't take this client. Oh, yes, I can. And they had their own lawsuits within their own law firm on that TV show. So not reality based, right? But if a lawyer had brought in a client and it was a big fish, they were like, we're sitting on the big fish. And the lawyer's going, I don't like your company anymore. I'm stealing the big fish because I brought them in. And there was always a drama with it. It was I think, one of their biggest ways of, you know, creating drama on the show.
Yeah.
And now, yeah.
Well, that drama gets played out in different ways again in different states. Oklahoma is more like California, protects the worker to do whatever they want. You know, that's too broad,
but in California,
you have the right to work in their industry.
But California, I'm just saying, this is about the. I wasn't going necessarily on Boston, but it's about, for folks to understand, it's about like you're bringing in a client. And so when you sign up to work for someone to bring in clients and work with those clients and develop those clients, like even artist management has got to be part of that.
Yeah.
talent
Uh,
management, all of that in LA area. Come on, that's got to be a huge part of it too. It's like I bring in this client, you know, and then it's like, okay, we're going to leave, or you're going to get laid off or fired. Then who gets the client? And that's a drama. So
yeah.
is that where we're
Well,
at?
and the drama is, yeah, who gets to take the pot of
The
money?
fish.
And I don't want to refer to people as pots of money, but that's what we're really talking about. The value. Who
Hmm.
gets it? Is it the person who's leaving, or the the firm that's still in place and has been working with this client? But the thing about the person who's leaving, they've been working mostly with the client, probably. And so, and you see that, I see that in California, especially. I was just telling you, I've had a couple new clients just on this issue, and what the business is trying to do is saying, "Hey, wait, we developed this client relationship, and I know that you've been working on those accounts, um, but because we developed, we should be able to take it." And then, but the guy who's been working with the client says, "Well, I've got a great personal relationship, and I'm leaving, and they are free to come with me if they want." And there's rules about how you play that out. But by and large, in California, the person who's leaving has the upper hand.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes okay, because you also have to think California is very entrepreneurial too, startups and everything. So I wonder if this has kind of, at post COVID, we're seeing a lot of startups, a lot more people going into their own business. They've started it during COVID and said, okay, I'm going for it. Some people gone back to work. Everybody's a little, it's different and it's changing. But we're seeing a lot more startups. So you're seeing people leave agencies and going, you know what, I'm doing it on my own. Screw you. I'm going, and I've had these clients, I've been working with them for years. Maybe they even brought them to that company, right?
Yep,
And now
that
when
can
they
happen too.
leave, I'm going, hey,
Absolutely.
come with me. I've been with you through thick and thin. I'm going to bring you to my own place. So, do you think that's part of it, that people are actually going into more of their own business? Or there's been such a big shuffle in the workplace right now, too, that they're going, I have this Rolodex of people, not that we have Rolodexes anymore, but I have this. We don't even have black books anymore. What do we have? We have a phone. I have a
Yeah,
phone
right. A phone with
full
all
of
your information
really
on it.
good
Don't lose it.
contacts. And can that be a hiring card? Like literally. See?
Well, sure it is, because you've got all that information on your phone, and yeah, it's like the old Rolodex where you've got tons of information about clients. So yeah, but honestly, I don't know if it's the economy that's developing in a different way now. What happened in California was the law changed. And like I said, non-competes, or like I indicated, non-competes have been illegal in California for a long time. But there really wasn't a great enforcement mechanism.
Mhm.
If you had one with an employee, it wasn't illegal to have it. It was just illegal to enforce it. And then businesses could say, "Hey, I've got this non-compete," and then try to say, "We've got a problem now." And then they might contact the future employer of the employee who's left and say, "Hey, look, we got this non-compete and we're suing." Now, probably can't win, but you can still sue, and
Wow.
you can create problems. So a lot of employers under that circumstance, new employers would say, we don't want to deal with this. But now in California, the employee who's leaving has more rights of enforcement than they did before. And California's been very clear. If you have a non-complete in an employment agreement, it's void. And if you don't tell them it's void, they can sue you.
So basically, non-compete clauses, agreements don't exist. Like, get over it.
In
Like they,
California, yeah, except for some limited exceptions, like a sale of a business. Well, that makes a lot of sense. If you sell your business to someone, that someone doesn't want you going back into business. So
okay.
that's okay. If you leave a partnership, you can have a non-compete clause in that situation. An LLC, you can have a non-compete if one of the members leaves, or you dissolve the LLC. You can have non-competes amongst the members, and that is to protect the existing business,
Okay.
um, because a lot of it's gone away. And
And some of that is just by time, right? It's like a non-compete for a year or 6 months from
yeah,
when
it could be
I,
limited. Uh, yes, it can be, and that depends on the circumstances. And honestly, I've never seen a case where you've got one of these non-competes with a dissolving, not a dissolving business, with a business that has sold its
mm,
goodwill to someone else. Because as an employment attorney, I really don't see that
mm,
often. I probably run into it, but just that's not my bailiwick. My bailiwick
yeah,
is employees, and the non competes have been illegal for employees for a long time.
wow.
Again, but what has changed and why this is a big deal now, at least in California, is because the law has allowed the employee to sue for many more things than it could before. In fact, it really couldn't before. I mean, it might sue to say you can't enforce it. That's possible. They could have gone that way. But usually it was the other way around back in the old days where the employer would say, hey, I've got a non compete. We know it's void, but we're going to try to enforce it anyway. So that now you just can't do that. If you try
Because
to,
that would actually just typically scare people anyway, right? It would
yeah,
just
it
kind of
could.
like everybody just go, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to, like, I have a friend who left a company and she was in development and she brought the customers in, she had the clients, but when she went to leave, it was part of her contract, the non-compete for 6 months. You will not even go into this industry. However, she said, well, if you're going to hire me and when it's time to leave, you're paying me for those 6 months. Go
Well,
girl.
and that's fair. I mean, if you can
She did
negotiate,
good.
if you can
Yeah.
negotiate something like that, that seems fair. Um,
She took a
but
great
often,
vacation.
yeah, right. But often people can't enforce that kind. It's harder to negotiate that kind. It depends on the negotiation
It
power
was
you.
a different country, but she did
Oh,
it.
all right. That make it really depends. I mean, I really think that someone who has a big book of business who comes into a law firm, for instance, and says, "Hey, I know you want this non-compete. In fact, I'm okay with it, but you got to pay me for the year that I'm going to sit out." Now, all lawyers know that they're void, so you probably wouldn't hear that in a lawyer situation. But let's pretend that it did. Then they
So Boston legal's not true.
Well, it depends the state. California says no non-competes for in employment situations. Other states are love them. Gosh, I wish I just don't run into situations in other states enough. But I know I read cases and on the
Oh,
East Coast. I'm thinking maybe
well,
New
but it's got to
Jersey,
come to
where they
national.
go, hey, non-competes are
No,
great. We love them. So a
yeah,
lot of states support them.
but it's got to be interesting in California because you've got Silicon Valley, you've got all these tech startups, you've got people that work nationally and internationally. So if someone leaves, what happens if their clients in Chicago and they're based in the Bay Area or San Diego, right? And it's like, okay, I'm leaving, but you know what? I got this client in Chicago. Since they're not in California, I can take them or not. Like, how does that part like work? Because then isn't that going a little
You
more on the
cannot have a
federal?
non-compete in California in an employment situation. So
Period.
no. And in fact, the
Wow.
law in California is written in such a way that they said if you are a California company and you try to have someone out of state sign a non-compete, even if they work out of state, let's say Illinois, Chicago, that is still a void contract, and that person who's working out of state can come into California and sue you for trying to enforce it, or for having it, not just trying to enforce it. That's illegal too. But for having it, you can sue
So
someone.
this is about protecting the workers so that they can go out and make money as
Yep.
soon as they leave a company, whether they're fired or choose to leave, right? Neither either way.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter. You cannot have a non-compete clause in
Period.
California in an employment situation. Cannot do it. It was always that way, but what has changed is now if you try to enforce it, or if you have someone even try to sign one, or if you don't give warnings to people who have been employed since 20, early in
Yeah.
2020, 2022, they can sue you
Whew.
for not
So
warning them. You're supposed. The law now says if you have someone who has worked for you in the last 2 years since January 1, 2022. Um, and you don't tell them that their non-compete is now void, they can sue you for not telling them.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's you cannot have an employment non-compete clause. And
Wow.
now there's muscle to really back it up.
So don't mess with it. And employees should be aware of this too, because if you get into, and everyone should actually look at their employment contracts right now, right? In a,
Yeah. Oh, and employers, if they have ever had an employment contract with a non-compete in it, they need to look at that and they need to do something now,
okay, what
yesterday.
did they do? What did they do? Do they call you or go to HR? What did they do?
Well, what they're required to do by the law is to tell that person that the non-compete is void, and they have to do it in writing. They have to send it through the mail and by email. Yeah, and it's very specific. That's what you've got to do. And honestly, I had a client do that without having me look at it first, and then I looked at it later and I said, "Well, I wouldn't have said it this way, but
Oh,
it's out there, so it's better than nothing." At least you they made the deadline because that had to happen by February 14th. So now if you send it,
mm,
you're late. But my position is I think you're better being late than never doing it.
mm. Wow.
Yeah, no,
So,
it's serious, it's strict, it's specific.
so send something now, and then can that, so sometimes when you mess with clauses or agreements within an agreement, that can actually make the entire agreement void. Like the whole thing could go down the toilet. So can that happen within these employment contracts? Like, hey, I was hired and I did this, can it make, can this screw up an employee's contract with the company and vice versa?
Yeah, it can. Um, and the
Ooh.
way I'm reading the law, and we probably have to litigate a little bit to really figure out exactly how it's going to be interpreted, is if you're trying to do a non-compete now, the entire agreement is void. If it's an old contract, I think the clause, it's an employment contract that just has a clause, non-compete clause in it. I think that clause is only void as long as you warn them. Again, that's what another reason why I think you need to tell them that that clause is
Mm,
void. Because if you do that, then the rest of the contract should be okay.
yeah,
But yes, if I try to get someone to sign a non-compete today and they signed
that's
or a clause with an, or, I mean, a contract with a non-compete clause in it, and they signed it and we assigned it, that whole contract is void.
mm. And as an employee going into a company, you should be aware of this so you don't sign something like that because you got to look twice at the company not being
Well,
aware of it too,
yeah,
you
it's
know?
probably going to fall out on the company and not the employee in the long
So
run.
what companies have this? This is where I was going about, like law firms have it. People like, anything with some kind of development and sales, getting clients. I mean, every business has it. I even look at hospitality, like group sales for hotels. I mean, there's people that know, hey, I get these X amount of people booked every year. They have this event that's got to happen with that. Even golf tournaments. Like, I'm like, my mind is just like, this actually affects all sales around
Yeah,
everywhere
I
in a way.
sales I think is probably as a general category is probably maybe the most significant part of it, but sales is so
Yeah.
broad. I mean, everyone has sales, right? So
Yeah.
if you can say as a salesperson, oh, I still have these contacts. I'm going to go over here. They're going to pay me more for the same contacts, and I can still contact these people. Well, then yeah, all these anyone who's in sales who is in that kind of situation because often sales can be so different. There's cold calling, whatever it is, and so maybe you don't have a book of clients, but so often you do. So I think you're right. This would affect sales as a large group. But another place that I have seen it is in financial advisory situations where you work very closely with clients. You may bring them in. The firm may bring them in. You may end up working closely with a client the firm has brought in and spent a lot of money on to get in. And then when that person wants to go, what happens? Well, now a non-compete is not enforceable for sure. I mean, it never was, but you can't even pretend it is anymore. And more often than not, now the employee can sue you if you try to enforce it, or just sue you because you didn't tell them that it was voided.
But
So
okay,
I,
what happens if you have top secret stuff?
well,
Okay,
that's
because we're
different. Yeah.
but that's a non-compete thing, right? So what happens like with all
It,
these
it
tech
can
startups
be
and apps,
related. Can be related. Go ahead.
AI algorithmy stuff, like I don't know how to pronounce half of that stuff, whatever's going on there with all this geeky stuff, but someone came up with some incredible formula within a company, like a scientist, look at chemistry, biochemistry, medicine, all of that. Do you sign a non-compete when you go in? Hey, I found this as a, you know, biologist, whatever goes into medicine and all that. Like, I found this drug. I created this under this company name, right? I'm trying not to give examples because I don't want to get in trouble. I'm scared these days, but I came up with this formula and the company wants me to sign a non-compete, but I came up with it. This is beyond sales because if this is something that's going to make mass sales, that's more important than the actual one or two customers, right?
Yeah,
This
but
is,
you're talking about trade secret. Uh,
oh, but that doesn't come into non-compete and compete.
well, it can be related, and here's where they
Oh,
cross
okay.
over. So trade secrets are definitely protectable, and every company should protect their trade
The
secrets.
secret sauce. Yeah.
The secret sauce. Um, uh, yeah, and there's other protections of the law, but trade secrets is one. And where they cross over though is, well, is a client list a trade secret? And
Mm,
the answer to that is it depends. Depends on how well protected it is. It depends on how uh, out in the public this kind of information is. So that comes down to how you define what a trade secret is. But if you can define a client list as a trade secret, and it's possible, it's definitely possible, then they can't use that client list for sure.
mm.
So that's where they overlap the trade secret idea, where you certainly can protect your trade secret. Secret sauce you can protect. Then the
Okay.
next question is, well, is the client list a trade secret? And maybe not. But if it is, that list is protectable. If it's not, then you got a problem, and this guy may take clients, or
But that's
they
kind of
may
kind of
contact me later.
sucky. It's sucky for the client, like I mean, the business. Like, if the business is here and hey, I own a let's see, what business can we talk about that we won't get in trouble for? Let's we won't do a lawyer business because then you might have to sue me and sue yourself. I don't know.
All right,
But
let's pick a
let's
business.
do the
Let's
real
take a
estate. Real
chance.
estate. Real estate's
Real
good.
estate. Okay.
Business, like commercial real estate, right?
Okay.
Now, you are the person that knows how to get the land and people with the land to develop and do all of that. You've had this Rolodex for years, old school terminology, sorry. But here we go. You go in, you're working with a company that goes and buys a land so they can sell it and develop it, right? Now you've got the people, you know who's going to come in, you know the big fish. You
Yeah.
go in, you're working on this, you go in and they say, okay, you can't compete. But what happens for the client themselves, like the business, the
Wait,
actual business that,
wait. They come in and say you cannot compete. What do you mean?
okay, in other words, the person selling the clients on the real estate. Okay, so you have the real estate company buying the land and developing, but here comes, you know, I'm going to say Joe Schmo. Should I say that, or is that a bad name?
I'm not offended.
Okay, I don't know what to say anymore.
Just say
Apparently,
Joe.
everything's
Just
a
say
Joe.
Joe.
Oh, I don't mean the president. God, I'm going to get in trouble. Okay, so Joe Schmo. No, I better not. Sam comes in and has all the contacts to sell this land, develop it, do everything, and is working with the company that owns everything. This is their company, right? So the company comes in, they're like hiring them. He's paying the company is paying him well, and they're like, yay. But then Sam goes, I can do this myself and I have all the contacts. I'm moving on. So that hurts the company, right? And the company trusted Sam, right? And paid Sam
Yeah,
a lot of
it can.
money. But this could actually really hurt a company with
Sure it can.
Sam leaving. So Sam wins. He's industrious. So this bill protects Sam, but what's protecting the company? If the company is paying him a lot of money, right?
That can be a big problem. And an industry, I think that might make it clearer is
Yeah, that
financial
was a bad choice. Sorry.
financial advisory industry,
Okay.
because there the
Oh,
company has
ooh,
experts who are working on portfolios for people.
ooh,
The company may be bringing people in. The person who's working on it may also be bringing people in. I mean, or it could be all one, all the other, or a mixture. So when that person says, "Hey, I think I want to leave," and they leave, and their clients, all those clients, because they have a personal relationship with that one financial advisor, goes with them, that's really hurt the company.
yeah,
And they've worked to develop these relationships. So yes, that can really hurt the company. Now, but the other way of thinking about it is, well, all right. So two thoughts. One is, well, if the client list is protected as a trade secret, that could mean that this guy who's leaving can't call all these people because it's a protected trade secret, or
oh,
the information that he has about each client. Maybe I'm
don't
not
be
going to
a
say it
Martha
is.
Stewart.
It could be. So that's one thing. So the trade secret might protect that, at least to some degree. But the other thing is that the in California, the policy is, well, I guess we're going to pick the leaving employee because we want everyone to be able to work in the profession they've chosen, and we don't want people to be restrained from that.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense
it's
too.
protectable, at least part of it
Mm.
potentially. Might not be very good because at the very least they can tell everyone, "Oh, I'm leaving. I'm going over here. Great to know you." And that may set up where all these people go, "Well, I want to go with him." So maybe they all leave anyway. Um, but California says, "Well, we think that's okay." Now, a lot of other states don't. So you're right. It's a real tension. I mean, who do you support? Do you support the leaving employee, or do you support the business?
Wow, because I care about both so much. Like I understand as a business owner, like if you trust someone and they screw you over and and we've been through that as a magazine, we've been through that kind of stuff. And in this country and another country, and it sucks. It's like it makes you not want to have employees after a bit. And that's a bad thing actually for commerce. So there should be a middle ground. So I'm thinking that the trade secret clause may start to expand in some interesting arenas over the
Well, we're going to
next
see
few
much
years.
more litigation in California over trade secrets, I am sure, because that's really the only way that you can potentially protect your clients from leaving.
Yeah, yeah, it seems, yeah, and I'm also for the employee doing what they need to do too. I'm for both, you know,
Well, this
I'm
is
for
one of these
both.
tough
This
policy
sucks.
calls. I mean, who do you
This
choose?
sucks.
What's better? What's worse? I don't know.
It
That's a tough
sucks
one.
because the
That's a very
employee
tough one.
does, maybe brought them into the company from their work experience beforehand. Maybe that's why they were hired there and then they do all the work, yet the company is the one who's setting up the money and the foundation and delivering the goods. So, you know what I mean? I think sometimes we forget about what costs the business actually
Well, and
puts
the business
forward.
may really be putting a lot into money and time effort into developing client relationships too.
Yeah.
So it's not just that they're supplying money to make business happen. They may really be specifically spending money on developing client relationships.
Or that
And this
person.
guy leaves with
Yeah.
them. Oh wow.
Well, they all know, everybody knows, a first time client is the most money goes into the first time, right? That is like the most expensive
Oh,
time is
up
getting a
front,
first.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you're prospecting and that costs. Yes.
Yeah. And so when you hire someone that's bringing those kind of people in or already has them, you're funding them. And normally they get paid really well to do so, you
Well,
know?
and in that situation where they got the Rolodex, we go back to the Rolodex
Yeah. Yeah.
with all that information, they're coming in with that book of business. That's probably theirs. I don't see how the company could say, well, first of all, the
Yeah.
guy. even if it's legal to have non-competes, if the person who has this big Rolodex goes to a new employer, he can say, or he or she can say that, hey, I'm coming here. I'm not signing any non-compete. These are my people. So if you want me here and I'm going to make you a lot of money, you're not going to take my people from me.
This is
So
gonna get weird. This is gonna
well,
get
I,
more
I
into
think
the
that
independent
normally happens.
contractor.
I
Ooh,
think
this
that
is getting weird.
happens. I think
Mm,
that's happened in any state, even if you have
mm,
non-compete. So I don't think that's as big a problem as where there's a mix and the client or and the business is
mm,
developing some client contact and like you said, the upfront costs of getting a new client in are high.
mhm.
So and then those people leave. That hurts the
Right,
business. But
right.
if you
But
come
I
in with a
think,
book of business, they shouldn't be saying, I'm going to take that from you. And I don't think the person who's coming in won't let that happen. I can't imagine.
but there's also a line of how much you can play what's called the back door of clients.
The
Like
back
as someone
door.
has a, yeah, it's a back door. It's a sales term.
Oh,
From you're
okay.
playing the back door instead of getting new clients, you're focusing on the old ones, and you're playing
Okay.
client retention too much, where you just try to I've been in companies where you upsell, 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 and you start upselling your back door, which is the clients you have on hand, instead of going out and getting new clients, right? You're
Right.
playing in your backyard, basically the back door.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and so then it becomes a very unhealthy relationship because you're not doing good to the client. You're not looking. I've been in that company landscape, and that's why we don't do that anymore. We're not there anymore because you don't do that. It's there's a an ethical way of business where you just keep calling the same person to get more money for a new thing. It's a every car
No, I've seen it.
salesperson knows
I've
this.
run into
Sorry
that.
about car sales. I
No, I've run into that where I was getting upsold a lot on an old website I had. And at some
Yeah,
point, I just had to say, no,
yeah, no,
doing this.
people will go,
I don't care if it's not working. I'm not pouring more money into this.
yeah,
But you're
yeah,
right.
there's
That's
a there
a
that's
little
a that
shaky.
there's a backdoor business that happens, and that that is where some people come in with a Rolodex, and I'm going to go as a business owner, go, you're coming in with a Rolodex. Why aren't you successful on your own with it? Why didn't you, if you're that successful with all these clients, why aren't you, okay, so you can't manage a business yourself. So this is where this independent contractor thing is going to get weird
Oh
over
no, we're
this
going
next.
into independent contractor
I
now.
am, I am, I am, because I see it's gonna go there. Because part of this thing about the non-compete and all of that is people having these contacts. And a lot of people are failing businesses thinking, oh, I have made all these contacts in this class. I personally know a real estate person in San Diego doing it right now, going, I did it all here. Now I can go open my own office over here and do this, but because you know. So I'm just saying, real estate is one of them. Maybe I don't
And
know.
that brings up a very interesting thing for me because I've been talking in my article when he talks about employment contract having non-compete clause. Uh, but then I hadn't really thought about, well, what about independent contractors? And someone says, hey, you got to sign this non-compete clause to be
Oh,
my independent contractor. And I would say California would say that's not legal. It doesn't matter whether they're an employee or an independent contractor. Non-competes are just not legal except for those exceptions I listed off at the beginning of this.
okay. So everyone, Ward's article is listed and linked from the show notes. Okay, so check that out. But I swear it's going to go weird. It's going to go weird with the independent contractor
No, it
stuff.
could. I really hadn't thought about that too much, but because I'm just seeing it
You,
in employment
but it's
situations
getting
right now.
weird, and it's getting weird with these strikes with Uber and Lyft.
Well,
The
and then,
independent contractor thing's not going away.
oh
That
no,
issue.
it's not. Oh no, 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 no. I was just talking this week, probably more than once, about independent contractors and saying, "Hey, look, I don't think you can do that in California anymore because of AB5, which we've talked a ton." But the same thing, California said, "Hey, we want employees, so we've passed this law that's going to force businesses to have more employees and fewer independent contractors." So that's always a big thing. That's been a big thing for the last 3 or 4 years in
Mm,
California, and that does overlay this at least to a degree about the non-compete clauses.
wow. Well, we always have something to talk about, Ward.
No,
It's
we
like
do. And
I
I
I
do.
was
I
just
mean, really.
I I was talking to our friends here in Texas, in Austin, where we are right now recording, and I was laughing because they're from San Diego and selling their house, and I said, well, somebody from California is going to buy it, and because we were talking about California, and we were just laughing about all these changes, and I said, I know Ward is happy about everything, and I mean it because it's always changing. Your industry
Oh,
is always changing, and it's like you
yeah.
cannot get bored with what you do because
No,
there's
I
always
don't.
something new. Just when
There's
you
always
thought
something new.
that was not a big deal, now it is. Like the fast food thing, the fast food act thing that
Oh,
happened.
yeah.
No, now it's gone down. No, it's back. Hello.
It's back
You
under a different form. And now I, gosh, I think it's by April 15. I think that's the date that sticks in my mind. Um, Fast food workers must make at least $20 an hour. Wow.
Is that why McDonald's raised its prices? Nancy told me she we were going on the road. She says, "Do you know McDonald's apparently did this? Like they raised their rates and everybody got mad." And I thought of it. I was like, "It's because of what happened in California across the board. Apparently, coffee went up. Like everything went up 50%. Don't quote me or Nancy on it because you never know what we're reading on
Yeah,
social
yeah, yeah. No.
media or stuff.
Well, because I go to enough restaurants that I know
In other words,
everything's more.
McDonald's, do not sue me."
Well, everything's
Uh,
more. All food. If you go to a restaurant, it's more expensive significantly. Fairly significantly than it was 4 years ago.
yeah.
And part of that, I think, is higher minimum wage. And you can, whether it's good or bad, I'm not even say, but
Mm-mm.
that's going to increase the cost. And then part
Yeah.
of it is the the material. The food is more expensive.
Yeah, everything and things after COVID really changed. And
Yeah.
I think we also realized that restaurants really to break even and make money in a restaurant is not an easy thing at
Oh my
all.
gosh,
And
it's tough. So
do
much
not have it.
competition.
Yeah, and that's a whole other radio show because I could get into that. Restaurants that want to have 20-page menus, you're gonna hurt. Don't do it. You know. I could I
Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. I have a good client, and he runs a very good restaurant business. He's opened up places all over San Diego. Um, he used to have like five different, at least four different menus, and I kept shaking my head. And last time I went, he has reduced it down to one. And I think that was so smart. I thought, oh, so much better to get this one.
mm,
Maybe it's not quite as flexible, but it's more manageable. And so
yeah, it's
don't.
you have to we've done so many shows on restaurants and eventually I'm like, okay, we should just do one just on restaurant management because of all the people that we know in the industry, and it's the restaurant industry is hard. It's hard on the
Oh, it
employees and
is.
the owner. It's
Yeah.
just a brutal business. And if you hear anybody swear in that industry, leave them alone. Let them swear. Let them smoke their cigarettes outside and let them have their cocktail. Just let them be. It's hard. It is a hard industry, and us customers are not always the easiest to deal with. So maybe we should all just back off
It's a
and
tough
let them be.
industry. I mean, most restaurants go out of business in a year, I think it is, and
Mhm.
very few last
Any new
3 years.
they always say like 2 years. If you can keep your new business 2 years, you're okay. You've got your worst part over, and this we're 27 years old this year, Nancy and I, in this country. And I mean, I'm like, how did that happen? Because I was in my 20s. What what happened? But it's you go through significant changes and you have to weather it. You have to weather it. And these changes you talk about, like for you, it's always like something changing. Even for the business and the employees, it makes or breaks businesses. It makes or breaks someone's paycheck of where they can live or what they can do for their kids. All of these decisions really do make a difference.
Oh,
And
they
and
do.
sometimes not that great,
Sure.
sometimes good, sometimes it just is what it is, and everybody has to make change from whatever these laws do, and sometimes people get pissy about it and you can't. It is just what it is. You have to just deal with what is happening and focus on that, right? So
Absolutely. You got to deal with
right
what's
on.
there, not what's not there.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right on. So call Ward, everyone, best employment
If you want to
attorney,
deal
San
with what's
Diego.
there, call me.
Yeah, call Ward. He's aggressive. That's why I have to watch what I say though, because I'll have to like move to California because if we get in trouble, so Ward can represent us. So
I'll
you
help
know,
you out.
all right, I know. I always like, don't do this, we'll get in trouble, and then we'll have to move to California. And we're on the road full time. What do we do? So, anyway, Ward, always fun having you on the show. Can't wait for next month. I know there's going to be another thing. I know we're going to have to dig into the independent contractor again. It's coming. I
Oh
know
yeah,
that show
it's
is
coming.
brewing that topic again. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. You take care. And San Diegans, don't spend all your money at once. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Spend it. Have fun. Take care, Ward.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's California Employment Law Podcast with San Diego attorney Ward Heinrichs. Keep up with Ward at bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com or follow him on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also subscribe to Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.